Tadasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahita Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Shri Lita Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripasindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you so much, dear devotees, and for everyone for being here, for giving me the opportunity to engage in devotional service by speaking and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in your association. Krishna shares in Bhagavad Gita, Makchata Makkata Prana, Bodhayantas Parasparam, Kathayatans Cha Mam Nitya, Tushyati Cha Ramanti Cha. That devotees engage in discussion about Krishna, Katha, and by so doing, they invoke great pleasure and satisfaction of the self, right? And there's the other famous verse and mantra. I don't exactly know which shastra that it's from, but it says, fake it till you make it. I don't know the Sanskrit for that one. And so sometimes we just have to come together as devotees. Sometimes we come together as devotees because we feel great inspiration and we feel a great flow of nectar and mercy. And we come and we exchange that with each other. And sometimes we come together in devotees even when we don't feel that flow and exchange of nectar, because we know that if we consistently show up for each other, with each other, then Krishna will be inspired to open that flood house of mercy to rain down upon us. And so that is called sadhana. It's called consistency in Krishna consciousness, where we show up for each other over time. And by so doing, Krishna awakens within us the natural inherent joy and love of the soul. And so this morning Bhagavatam class is a beautiful opportunity for us to do that. And I'm grateful to be allowed to be in that Sangha with all of you. So thank you also very much. And thank you, Jeffrey, for putting that beautiful verse in the chat. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss. I'm always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So in that mood, we'll open up Srimad Bhagavatam. And from what I understand, we're supposed to start with verse 9 of chapter 64 of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. That's correct? Okay. So that would
actually
be...
on mistake. 10. Vasudev covered 9. Amaraj Miga starts speaking in 10.
Start speaking into 10. Okay, great. That's what 10 to 16. Is that correct? 10 to 16, yes? Okay.
9 to 16.
Let's just read 9 just because it's there in Haribol. Shri Shuka Uvacha Iti Samraja Samsprishta Krishnena Nanta Murtina Madhavam Pranipattaya Kiritanarka Varchasa. Sutta Goswami said, thus questioned by Krishna, whose forms are unlimited, the king, his helmet as dazzling as the sun, bowed down to Lord Madhava and replied as follows. So this king, who has a dazzling helmet and is bowing down to Lord Madhava, just a few moments ago was in the form of a lizard trapped inside of a well and was discovered, and Krishna reached out his hand to pull him out and unveiled this form of the king. So he's just about to speak. So we're going to hear the story of this king, and we're going to hear his realizations and thoughts. Verse 10. Nriga uvacha, nrigo namandarendroham, ikshvaku tanaya prabho, danishvyakyam, danishvyakyayamaneshu, yadite karnam ashprasham. King Nriga said, I am a king known as Nriga, the son of Ikshvaku. Perhaps, Lord, you have heard of me when lists of charitable men were recited. Purport. The Acharyas point out here that although a tentative expression is used, perhaps you have heard of me, implication is that there is no doubt. So this is significant, and it'll come up in the next verse that Krishna knows who the king is, right? And it allows us to remember that Krishna knows us also. I remember the first time that I read in the Bhagavad Gita, I believe it's in the 7th chapter, that Krishna says, I know all living beings, but me no one knows. Something to that effect. And I remember thinking like, wow, sometimes I feel like nobody knows me, but Krishna really, like God, like who has the capacity to fully understand and know God? Nobody, unless he makes that understanding available to us. But we should at least know in our darkest and loneliest of moments that Krishna knows our story, that Krishna is there with us. And that is the hope that a devotee carries. That is the faith of a devotee, is that sometimes the world may not, we'll never get, that is the ultimate lesson of the material world, is that we're never going to get from the material world what we were only meant to get from Krishna in the first place. And if whenever things, quote unquote, don't seem to be going the way we thought they were supposed to be in the material world, from a materialistic perspective, we become depressed or anxious or disgruntled or resentful because it's not going the way we wanted to or thought we should. But from a devotee's perspective, devotees carry unlimited hope and excitement for the future because there's a trust that Krishna not only is guiding things, but he knows what's best. And most importantly, he has my best interest in mind. Bhoktarim yagatapasam sarva lokamaheshwaram suhridam sarva dehinam gyatva mam shantim richati. Who knows this verse from the end of the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita? Krishna lists several aspects of his supremacy. He says, Bhoktaram yagatapasam, which means, our Gita scholars out there?
He's the benefactor of all austerities and sacrifices.
All sacrifices and a benefactor of all sacrifices and stereos. Prabhupada translated the enjoyer of all sacrifice. Bhoktaram, he enjoys, like we have bhoga arti. Bhoga means enjoyment. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam. Yagya means sacrifices and tapasam means austerities, means he's the enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities, right? He's the Purusha. He's the one who's meant to enjoy. Okay, Bhoktaram yagya tapasam. Sarva loka maheshwaram means
Controller.
the controller.
Controller.
Sarva means Sarva
All
Loka
uni-
Maheshwaram, controller of all the lokas, all the universes, all the planets. He's the controller of all of that. Okay, so what is the distinguishing factor that makes Krishna our supreme best friend as opposed to an egomaniac tyrant? It's the very next line. Because just being in control of everything, being the enjoyer of everything, that's not necessarily reassuring. That can be terrifying, unless Krishna speaks the next line, Suhrida Sarvadehina, which means what? Suhrida means that he's the well-wishing friend in the heart, Sarvadehinam, of every living being. So not only is Krishna the enjoyer of all sacrifices, not only is he the controller of everything, not only is he guiding everything, not only is he looking out for everything, but he has our best interest in mind. And so when the king here is speaking this, and this will unfold a little bit in the future verses, he's saying, perhaps maybe you've heard of me. And in the purport we're hearing from our acharyas that undoubtedly Krishna already knows the entire story of the king. He knows all of our stories, right? There's no need to explain it. But Krishna knows our story. Krishna knows what you're going through. Krishna is there with you and he's guiding you. And there's a bigger plan than your false ego ever could have imagined. Right? There's a much bigger plan than your false ego or my false ego ever could have imagined. Right? And Krishna is constantly calling us to trust that. Right? What does he say to Arjuna at the very end of Bhagavad Gita? He's calling him to trust that very thing. Arjuna, I know your story. Krishna is telling Arjuna, listen, I read the whole Mahabharata. I didn't just read the Mahabharata, I starred in the Mahabharata. I didn't just star in the Mahabharata. Vedas chaham, what is the verse? 15, 15, 15. Sarvasya chaham hridisani dishto matasmrcha jnanam apohanam cha. Vedaischa sarver aham eva vedyo Vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. I'm the compiler of all the Vedas. The Vedas end in me. The Mahabharata, which is part of the Vedic canon of literature, comes from my breath. Yes, I know your story, Arjuna. And I'm asking you, Sarva Dharmam Prachaja, Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja, Aham Tum Sarva Papajo, Moksheshima. I'm asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to put your faith in me. I'm asking you to put all other considerations aside. Yes, okay, I get it. Your career and your finances and your relationships and your worries and your past traumas and your families and all of your everything going on in your life. I get it. And that's important. You got to deal with that. The whole purpose of the Bhagavad Gita is to walk towards the mess of life and deal with life messes with full enthusiasm and faith and gusto and attention. But don't get lost in the weeds and remember that at the end of the day, the only thing is that I'm just trying to call you back home. And I'll protect you. Masucha, don't worry. Don't worry. Please put down your worries. Right? Suhridam sarvadehinam. I'm your well-wishing friend. So this is the premise. The whole premise of Bhagavatam is based on this principle that there's a God, there's a supreme reality behind which is run by a person, a supreme person. The very first verse of Bhagavatam establishes this point, the absolute truth, the summum bonum, right? And we learn in subsequent verses and chapters of Bhagavad Gita the various ways in which we can approach that absolute truth as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan as a supreme realization. And the highest service is to engage in loving devotional service to that supreme loving person, right? But it requires us to ultimately put down our worries and the stories of our false ego and trust that we won't lose anything by choosing surrender and devotional service to the Supreme. And what do we have throughout Bhagavatam is stories of great personalities going through this process. Dhruva Maharaj, losing everything, walking away from his kingdom, losing the approval and acceptance of his father, carrying around massive trauma wounds from his childhood. Talk about daddy issues. Dhruva Maharaj walking around with tremendous rejection and stumbling his way into the pure unadulterated service of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prahlad Maharaj, the rightful prince of the universe, the son of the greatest demon, attempted murder on his life, right? In so many ways, pain, trials, and tribulation, and trusting in Krishna's higher plan for him and protection ultimately. When we think of protection, we think of Nrsingadev, we can only but think of Prahlad. And there's that beautiful verse, I don't remember it now, I can't pull it up, but there's a beautiful verse. Oh, actually here, I have it here. I saved it on my phone because Sunanath was reminding me of this verse when I was in Washington, D.C. and I was driving around looking, it was the middle of June, and we were driving around, 17. I was with Gauravani and Sundernath in Washington, D.C., and we were searching for a heater because Ranat Swami's health was in such a condition that he needed a heater, and there's nowhere that sold heaters. We'd walk into Best Buy and Home Depots and like, do you guys have heaters? And they're like, what? What do you want a heater? It's 100 degrees outside. So anyways, we were driving around looking for heaters, and somehow this verse came up from the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, chapter 8, verse 17. Before I get there, does anybody know why Lord Nrsingadev appeared? There might be many reasons. In this particular chapter of Bhagavatam, without reading, Gauranga Leela's got a hand up. Yes. Gotta unmute yourself.
To protect his devotees.
To protect his devotee. Yes, that is true. That is true. Thank you for sharing that. Any other reasons that Bhagavatam may state? There's more than one, so you're not wrong. You're right. To protect his devotee Prahlad. Any other reasons? It's a very similar reason. Neha, to keep Prahlad's word. Thank you, Neha, for sharing that. Yes, very much related to what Gauranga Lila shared. In verse 17, Satyam vidatum nijabritta bashitam tyaptin chabuteshvakaleshu chatmana adrishyatya bhuta rupam udvaham stambe sambayanamrigam namanusham. To prove that the statement of his servant Prahlad Maharaj was substantial. In other words, to prove that the Supreme Lord is present everywhere, even within the pillar of an assembly hall. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari exhibited a wonderful form never before seen. The form was neither that of a man nor that of a lion. Thus the Lord appeared in his wonderful form in the assembly hall. So Hiranyakashipu was saying, where is your God? He said, is he in this pillar? And Prahlad said, yes, he's in this pillar. And Nrsingadev said, oh my God, even though I am God, I got to go show up in that pillar to prove my devotee Prahlad right. So how can we think of Nrsingadev without thinking of Prahlad Maharaj? So when we think of protection, we think of Nrsingadev, we think of Prahlad. So again, not to divert, we'll go back to our verses of the 10th canto Bhagavatam. The whole Bhagavatam is set on this premise of devotees who the arc of our devotional service in our heritage, in our devotional heritage, and the heritage of the Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata and the Ramayana is people who have everything taken away materially in some form or another in order to help them take complete shelter spiritually in a way they may never have before. And that is the faith of a devotee, to allow that to happen in such a way that we're able to trust in Krishna's plan and love for our life. So, text 2. Kim nu te vidatam nata sarva bhutatma shakshina kalenna vyahata drisho vakshe tapi tavagyaya. What could possibly be unknown to you, Master, with vision undisturbed by time? You witness the minds of all living beings. Nevertheless, on your order, I will speak. Purport. Since the Lord knows everything, there is no need to inform him anything. Still, to fulfill the Lord's purpose, King Nrega will speak. So this is also Krishna's instruction to Arjuna throughout Bhagavad Gita, right? What is the verse? I know Krishna Daya knows this verse. He quotes it often. Nimitta matram bhavasavya sachim. What's the verse? 11th chapter Bhagavad Gita.
Sorry.
Somebody's untaken it right now. 11th chapter Bhagavad Gita.
11:33.
11:33.
तस्मात् त्वमुत्तिष्ठ यशो लभस्व जित्वा शत्रून् भुङ्क्ष्व राज्यं समृद्धिम् मयैवैते निहितं पूर्वमेव निमित्तमात्रं भव सव्यसाची.
Therefore get up, prepare to fight and win glory, conquer your enemies and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Sabyasachi, can be but an instrument in the fight. So everything is already done by Krishna. But we're being called to be an instrument, not because Krishna is dependent on us, but because we have the opportunity to be an instrument in Krishna's hands for our benefit. And so similarly, the king here is saying, you already know everything. There's no need for me to explain this story to you. But because you're asking me to speak, I will speak. That is how we maintain humility in our service. No matter what small or grand thing we may be doing, we know that we are simply acting on Krishna's behalf. We had a beautiful celebration of Radha Mulidhar the other weekend, celebrating 50 years of devotional service to Radha Mulidhar across communities and generations. And one of the realizations is that we're not here for them, but they're here for us. We're not here for them, but they're here for us. And the opportunity to perform whatever small service we have is our great fortune and benediction. And we perform that service in an act of humility, knowing that whatever big or small amount it may be, I'm having the opportunity, because some of you may think, well, who am I? What do I have to offer? What do I have to contribute in the presence of whoever other devotee? Why am I even speaking Bhagavatam right now? There are so many other devotees qualified to speak so much more beautifully, so much more eloquently, so much more with deep realization, so much more aware of Shastric references, and so much more, even just depth of realization, right? We're not asked to speak Bhagavatam because we're so qualified, are the greatest of all speakers. We're not asked to lead kirtan because we have the most beautiful melodious voices. We're not asked to address the deities because we're the most artistic person on the planet. We're not asked to take on a particular service because there's nobody better than us in all the three worlds. We're asked to do a service because it's simply being asked of us, and Krishna's giving us an opportunity to perform devotional service, and so we perform that service. We speak Bhagavatam, not because nobody's ever heard what I'm about to say, not because you guys need to be enlightened by my deep wisdom, but because it's an opportunity for me to perform service, and you're giving me that opportunity, which I'm extremely grateful for. And you have the opportunity to perform Shravanam, hearing, and you'll benefit from that hearing if you take it very seriously, not because I'm going to say something so amazing and profound and wonderful, although we're speaking Bhagavatam, which itself is amazing, profound, and wonderful, but through your sincere oral reception, Krishna will bless you with realization and understanding beyond my own words, right? It's not a material transaction. Listening to Bhagavatam, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, it's not a material transaction. It's not like you go to school to study physics or economics or music or some trade. And the more that you learn, the better you get at it. And the more you pay attention, the more you memorize, and therefore the better you are at a particular skill in being a doctor or a lawyer, passing the bar exam, or your health, your medical license. It's not like that. There's the story of the South Indian Brahmin who would read Bhagavad Gita every day, even though he couldn't understand the Sanskrit. But his spiritual master gave him the order to read Bhagavad Gita every day, and therefore he just simply stared at the book. And he absorbed the message and understood it in great depth. And Mahaprabhu saw him and saw his depth of devotion and said, "You've understood Bhagavad Gita more than any of these great scholars." And so similarly, when we take the opportunity to give our oral reception to Srimad Bhagavatam, regardless of the speaker, regardless of the charisma, regardless of how humorous or learned, etc. Yes, of course, we should take the time. And Rupa Goswami also gives us this instruction in the Upadeshamrita about associating with different types of devotees on different levels, the Kanishta, the Madhya, and the Uttaka. We should respect all devotees with all our heart and mind. We should respect all. But we should take that deep, intimate association and offer our deep service to those very advanced devotees. So there's importance of associating and hearing from very advanced devotees. But even in the absence of that, we have the opportunity to make advancement just by our sincere attempt to offer service and to hear submissively and to hear attentively. Like Krishna responds with that. What does he say in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita? 10:12, in the Chatra Shloki. Beautiful verse. Chapter 10, verse 12. Krishna, oops, I'm in the wrong. Chapter 10. No, verse 11, sorry. Verse 11. Tesham evanu kampartam aham agyanat jamtama nashayam yatma bhavashto gyani dipena bhashvata. To show them special mercy. Who? Those same devotees that we quoted earlier on, Makchata Kata Prana, those same devotees who offer themselves in love and service and discuss Krishna Katha and each other's association. I, the Paramatma in the heart, I destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So Krishna is the ultimate illuminator of realization, right? And so Krishna awards that realization in reciprocation to the sincerity of our service, right? Not to the scale of the quantity of our service, but in proportion to the quality of the sincerity of our service, right? So the king is being asked to tell his story, and he's saying, "My dear Lord, you know everything. You don't need me to tell this story. You know who I am. But because you're ordering me to speak, I shall thus tell this story," right? We have a few minutes left before we open it up to devotees to share their realization. So we'll just read through these stories here. And so what we're going to have in these next subsequent verses is just the king is going to relay his story. And there's not extensive purports here, but we'll just read them. Oops. Yayatva shikata boomer yayatvo divi taraka yav yavatyo varshadharascha tavatir adamam smaga. I gave in charity as many cows as there are grains of sand on the earth, stars in the heaven, or drops in a rain shower. Purport. The idea here is that the king gave innumerable cows in charity. So he's a very generous king. He was giving many cows in charity to various people. Okay, large numbers of cows in charity. Very pious. Payasvinish taruni shilarupa gunopapana kapila hemastringi nyayarjita rupya kuror savatsya dukulo malabharana dava aham. Translation: young, brown, milk-laden cows who were well-behaved, beautiful, and endowed with good qualities, who were all acquired honestly, and who had gilded horns, silver-plated hoofs, and decorations of fine ornamental clothes and garlands. Such were the cows, along with their calves, that I gave in charity. So a description of all the cows that he gave. Okay, for the sake of time, we'll skip the Sanskrit and just read the next translation. I first honored the Brahmins who were recipients of my charity by decorating them with fine ornaments. Those most exalted Brahmins whose families were in need were young and possessed of excellent character and qualities. They were dedicated to truth, famous for their austerity, vastly learned in the Vedic scriptures, and saintly in their behavior. I gave them cows, land, gold, and houses, along with horses, elephants, marriageable girls, and maidservants, as well as sesame, silver, fine beds, clothing, jewels, furniture, and chariots. In addition, I performed Vedic sacrifices and executed various pious welfare activities. So a lot going on in this verse, but the main principle is that he took care of people and he gave in charity, right? To the Brahmins, the priestly class of his community. Last verse that we'll read today. Once a cow belonging to a certain first-class Brahmin wandered away and entered my herd. Unaware of this, I gave that cow in charity to a different Brahmin. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami explains that the term Dvija Mukhya, first-class Brahmin, here indicates a Brahmin who has stopped accepting charity and thus refused to accept even 100,000 cows in exchange for the cow that had been properly given away. So he would give away all these cows in charity. And one cow that didn't belong to him, that belonged to a different Brahmana, wandered into his herd. And he mistakenly gave that cow away to somebody else. And this set up the complexity which will come in the subsequent verses, that he gave away a cow that didn't belong to him. And that Brahmin, the original owner, came and said, hey, you gave away a cow that belonged to me. And the person that he gave the cow to said, hey, you already gave this cow to me. And so he was in a predicament. And that's the predicament that he finds himself in. And the rest of the story will unfold itself in the subsequent classes that led him to being accepting the body of a lizard and as a form of his karmic reaction to his mistake. And the last thing that we say, we don't have tons of time to get into it before we open up to devotee sharing, is that sometimes these things happen. Sometimes even against one's own greatest discretion, mistakes take place. And we suffer the reactions from those mistakes. And we should accept them willingly, because it's an opportunity for us to deepen our devotion and purify our false egos. And when they happen to other people, when we see some negative reaction happening to somebody, we should refrain from judgment and we should always hold compassion. Because as we see here, the king himself was very charitable and by no means meant to cause any harm or disturbance to anybody. But even in his best attempts, such a mishap took place. And that is the nature of the material world, specifically in the age of Kali. And so there will always be 1,000,001 reasons for us to find fault, to create divisions, to cast judgment, and to feel a need to exact judgment on others. But that is not our place. Our place is to continuously show compassion, to understand the deeper story of every individual, and to extend acceptance, forgiveness, and understanding of each other in order to lay the foundation of a united community of people that have a common purpose of serving Krishna together. So this is the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the opportunity each of us have. It's not easy, which is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us the formula of Trinadapi Sunichena Varoriva Sahishrana. Amanina manina kirtaniya sadahari. But if we're willing to be humble like the blade of grass, tolerant like a tree, and willing to offer all respects to others without expecting it for ourselves, then we can enter into a deep relationship of the holy name and be able to share that relationship with others, and extend love and compassion to each other. Okay, I've already gone a little bit over time. There's just over 10 minutes. And Ananda Bihari Prabhu, please guide us further in how we can open this up to hear from all the other illustrious devotees in our assembly. Should I call on whoever has a hand raised? I see Bruce has a hand up.
Thank you for the class, Dayal Gauranga. Bruce has his hand up. Kirtan added. There he is.
Hare Krishna. Dayal,
Hare
it's
Krishna.
amazing how Krishna always puts you into this position with these verses where you find ways to churn the idea that he's our best well-wisher and our best friend. And this message is just the sincerity in which you share that with us just warms my heart so much. My question is pride and this idea of, I'm going to do my best to try and formulate this question as I can put it out, but it's jumbled in my brain. So this idea that we still aware of the ultimate goal, which is devotional service to the Lord, and yet we still have this idea that we can play God in our own lives and do what we can to control the outcome of whatever particular situation we're faced with, and not surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord. This idea of pride and that I'm still the controller. How does one hold on to that, which is our conditioned self, and free ourselves from that to be able to go deeper into our devotional service with more sincerity? Because how can sincerity go deeper when you're still holding on to pride and that you are whoever you are in whatever capacity you think your mind is of who we are, when you read that ultimately we are not this body and this is just a temporary moment in our existence, in our eternal existence? How can I wash away that pride? Yes, I understand patience. Yes, I have a small knowledge that continue reading, continue putting the hand in the bead bag with sincerity will bring me there. I'm not asking for a microwave version of that. Is it just simply keep doing it? Just keep going, keep having at it, and just humility, humility, humility?
Yeah, really great questions. And I think your sincerity is a lot of the answer itself.
But there's pride there. So that's the
Yeah.
question. With that pride, it can't be.
I think to expect ourselves to be completely devoid of pride in many ways is unreasonable, because we're in the material world for a reason, right? And so I think there's a level of comfortability we have to have with our own anartas in order to move forward in our devotional service, knowing that they're all marked. Somebody once gave me this analogy very, very early on in my Krishna consciousness. It's not an environmentally friendly analogy, so please forgive it, but just take the lessons from it. But if someone's going to, like, in the process of, if you need, let's say you have to cut down a number of trees in a forest for whatever particular reason, you're going to build something or there's disease or whatever. And so a deforester will go in and he'll mark these trees with a big X. Like, he'll take a spray can and they'll mark a tree with a big X, like this tree needs to come down, right? It's not going to come down today. I don't have all the tools and tractors with me to bring it down today, but I know which trees need to get marked, and you just mark it with a big X, right? And so it's not coming down today. It may not come down tomorrow, but when you come back with the right tools and the right time, you'll be able to recognize and say, oh, this is something that I've marked that I know I need to deal with at some point. And similarly, our anartas are like that. we think I got pride, I got a chance, I got to get rid of it. And it's like I don't belong here, and it creates insecurity, it creates guilt, it creates imposter syndrome, all of these things. And especially when we're associating with devotees and we're all on our best behavior, and it just looks like everyone around me is just like not dealing with any of this. There's something like intrinsically very wrong with me. And the answer is yes, there's something wrong with all of us. We have a body and a mind, and that's a very big problem. Material body and a mind and ego. But we're not singled out in that, right? And so there's very deep prayer, Krishna creating prayer. And it never goes away. I was just listening to a lecture recently by Radha Swami who was talking about even the residents of Vrindavan, right? Krishna disappearing from the association of the gopis because there was some sense of Krishna's only looking at me and I'm so special. And of course, we know that's not material ego and pride, that's transcendental, only for the sake of Krishna's enjoyment. But even then, he disappeared from their association to increase the hankering of their love, right? So it's never finished. It's never like, oh, great, I got my bhakti badge and I did it, right? It's so that's Krishna's blessing on you that you have that yearning, that hankering, right? Even our greatest acharyas have this ever increasing sense of humility and dependency on Krishna. So we pray for it, pray Krishna, only you can remove my anartas, like you lifted Govardhan Hill. I have a mountain of anartas in my heart, and you're Giridhari, and you can lift the mountain of anartas from my heart. And we keep good association with people who are striving for the same and who are also advanced on the path. And we pay attention. When we pay attention, it's very easy to see that I'm not the controller. Pay attention and recognize like, oh, wow, yeah. It's painful, but we pay attention. I hope that helps in some small way. There's so much more, and you are beautiful, all of that. And I look forward to connecting in all our conversations. But there's other hands that are up, so I'm going to move on. Love you, Bruce. Thank you so much.
Love you too. Bye.
Gauranga Leela.
I have three realizations.
Oh, I'm so eager to hear them.
So the first one, when you were like talking about one of the verse from Bhagavad Gita 10.13, which talks about if somebody, like Krishna says that if somebody narrates the Krishna Katha, that they become purified. Since today you were saying Krishna Katha, that means Krishna wanted to purify you, I guess, through that.
I need a lot of it, so I'm very grateful for it. Thank you.
And also I have like two questions. How do we surrender to Krishna?
That's the first question. How do we surrender to Krishna?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you probably know better than me because it looks like you're doing it already. There's a beautiful verse. Let me pull up this verse. I'll just share because I can't give an answer to that question because I'm not surrendered to Krishna. So how can I tell somebody else to do it? But there's a beautiful verse that I will share with you from the Brahma Samhita. I just have to find that verse. I just have to find the verse. There it is. It's from the Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, verse 59. And I think it's a really beautiful, hope-giving verse. And Pramanaistat sad acharastad apyasar nirantaram bodhayam atmanam bhaktin apyuttamam labet. The highest devotion, right? Bhakti uttama, is attained by slow degrees by the method of constant endeavor for self-realization with the help of scriptural evidence, theistic conduct, and perseverance in practice. So here we're given 3 tips. Stay close to Shastra. Live your life through the eyes of Shastra. Stay connected with Shastra. Make Shastra your friend. Read a verse from Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam every day. Attend the classes which you're doing. Stay close to Bhagavad Gita and Srila Prabhupada through his books. Theistic conduct. Mold your behavior according to the Shastra and towards the qualities and behaviors of a Vaishnava as they've been taught to us by Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And perseverance in practice. Stay steady in our practice to whatever degree we can. And constant endeavor by slow degrees, meaning that it's something that we do gradually over time. It's like when hair grows or grass grows. Sometimes we don't notice it day by day, but it's taking place. And when you look over time, you see, wow, something miraculous has happened. Not that spiritual life is compared to grass growing, which is a little bit boring, but the principle that you see is that there's a lot more happening than we're able to notice with our naked eye sometimes. So you are surrendering to Krishna every day, and it's very beautiful, Gauranga Lila. And this verse from the Brahma Samhita is a little offering to you to keep in your heart, that we do it every day over time by staying close to Shastra, by molding our behavior and our character after the examples of the great souls, and by being perseverant in our practice, that even when we stumble or make mistakes, we get back up and we keep going. And you exemplify all those things better than me for sure, and better than many of us. So thank you for setting that example.
Perfect questions, perfect answers here, two devotees. Pay close attention. Bhima has his hand up.
Yes, Haribol, wonderful class. I just want to add your statement to stay close to Shastra. Also, of course, stay close to the devotees.
Yes.
Very important. And a very easy, practical way of gaining the realization of surrender, surrendering while you're learning to surrender while you're surrendering, is find a service, whether it be making beautiful garlands for the deity, maybe after a Sunday feast, helping to clean up. The more that you engage yourself, Gauranga Lila, in some kind of service for Krishna, and that's between you and him. The devotees will, the devotees will arrange something nice that you can do, and then when you do that service, just always remember who you're doing it for, and then Krishna will be pleased by that, and he will reveal to you what the next thing you need to do that would please him, which is, of course, surrendering to him. And it goes without saying that, you can dig all you want in Shastra, but as persons can attest, it'll be a closed book until you actually engage, until you actually involve yourself in some type of service. And then these things will be revealed to you from within. Prabhu, what's the oh, well, anyways, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Dayal Gauranga. What a wonderful class. Shastric and hope given. Thank you. Thank you. Sage, Sky, Hare Krishna, did you enjoy the class? Yes, they did. They did. Nice. Thank you. Okay, Shishirada Muridar Ki Jai. Turn on your cameras if you can too. Thank you, Jani Prabhu. Shri Shri Radha Muralidhar Shri Guru Chandra Ki Jai.
Shri Radha Muralidhar Gauranga Chandra Sri Bhagavan Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai Hare Krishna. All right, welcome to the afterglow. We're going to have a quick afterglow. Bhima Prabhu made a wonderful point that without service, Shastra will not necessarily work in our life as to its best potential, to our best potential. And in the same way, when we engage in service, thinking that, oh, Shastra is for nerds, there will be lack of realization in our service. So it's always Shastra and service go hand in hand. That's what the verse says that Dayal Gauranga Prabhu shared. Stick to Shastra, do service, and don't worry about occasional detours and mishaps. Don't worry about it. Just persevere, keep going. Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. Thank you, Gauranga Leela, for asking the question. Gauranga Leela, you have another question?
I want to share
Really?
something funny. To make myself wake up, I need 5 alarms to wake up just to go to this class.
Nice, Gauranga Leela. I need 25s if I'm lucky. 25 alarms. You're doing good. Yeah, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. You can crawl to the class. You can listen to it in the shower. Just keep your camera off.
Yeah.
That's fine. Whatever it takes. Stick to Shastra, as the verse says. Stick to Shastra. Do some service. And don't worry about all the imperfections that we may have here and there. It's fine. There was a question in the chat from Narottam Nitai. Narottam Nitai is concerned that he doesn't have enough capacity to accommodate all the mercy that Krishna is bestowing on him. I don't think
That's
there's
not true. That's not
Yeah.
true. Krishna loves you more than you can even imagine.
Yeah, exactly. That's what mercy is. By definition, mercy is something that we kind of don't necessarily deserve and can comprehend at all times. So it's normal. How to quell pride more effectively, Bhava says. Bhima Prabhu, you want to answer that? I think you're best at answering that question.
How to quell pride?
Yeah, how to get rid of.
Take a plane trip. Can you hear me okay, or am I breaking up?
I can hear you. Eva can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Next time you get on a plane, get a window seat and take a look down at 10,000 feet and just see how infinitesimal you are. and understand that there's nothing that you can do that is of any great importance, except, of course, to learn to love the devotees, to love your family, and ultimately to learn to love Krishna, who is right there in your heart, your intimate, most dear, most friend. Also, another direction you can go into is go in deep, deep, deep in yourself. Take a look at your body, take a look at your brain, take a look at the cells with the mitochondria running everything. You played absolutely no role in that. You play no role in designing the brain that helps you to remember, that helps you to do the things that require intelligence. So ultimately, being humble is simply waking up to what is reality. And the reality is that we are infinitely small. There's nothing great that we do, but that Krishna does through us by virtue of, by design, that was originally from Krishna and for Krishna. That we at best have only one thing, and that is desire to wake up. And that's a very humble realization to have, is that we need more than 5 alarms. Every day we come to Bhagavatam class, and it's alarm. It's going off. And that alarm says, Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago. We must wake up, because pride is sleeping in the lap of Maya. Understand that if you're feeling proud, or if we are feeling proud, we are simply deluding ourselves. And then to end this, I read something yesterday I thought is a great bumper sticker, a maxim to remember. Delulu is not the solulu, which means delusion is not the solution. So always remember that. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. I'm going to cut out that Jiv Jago and put that as my alarm. Bhima Prabhu saying Jiv Jago. Jeff Reckler Prabhu, you had your hand up.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I was just going to reference Bhagavad Gita 9:22 in response to Narottama, his comment, but I put it in the chat. And I thought it was interesting to talk about 5 alarms to wake up. There's there's a English kind of, I don't know if it's colloquialism or what, but 5-alarm fire. So we talk about there being like several alarms for a fire, calling different firehouses, and so the idea that there's a 5-alarm fire that needs to be put out, and so maybe you need 5 alarms, and so there's no shame in that game. You've got to do what's necessary, show up, and Krishna reciprocates. So if you've got that desire to serve, and it's worth 5 alarms, then Krishna's going to show up with his 5 alarms too.
Thank you, Jeffrey Prabhu. There was this devotee, Ujjaswat Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, one of the early disciples of Srila Prabhupada. And he was asked a question here at the Bhakti Center. He was asked, Ujjaswat Prabhu, waking up to Krishna's calling, why does it always have to be inspired by some sort of a push, some sort of unpleasant pushing situation? Why can't we just wake up peacefully, gracefully, sattvically? Why does it have? Why does there have to be a push always? Just with Prabhu, look back at the person who asked that question. He was silent for a few moments, giving them a stare, making big eyes, and then he said, "Because we are lazy. We're lazy. It always has to be some sort of pushing. We are lazy. What do you think? Who do you think you are?"
Hare Krishna. No, it's apropos, because Gauranga Leela just put something in the chat about getting rid of laziness, and that's a very good point. Laziness is a manifestation of pride, and a manifestation of some kind of concept that we're bigger than we are, that we don't need to move, that we don't need to do the service. because we've somehow already earned it, maybe, or we've done enough. But when you wake up with gratitude and intent, then laziness is not an option, because the road ahead is still stretching into the horizon. So when I find myself in the throes of laziness, it's really like a depressed version of pride. That's all I got. I don't have anything intelligent to say, but
Thank you. I'm in the same boat, Jeffrey. Sometimes we fall victim to this laziness, but it doesn't even feel good. You get your frozen time, but then you don't even feel good after. So yeah, let's engage in service positively in such a way that we're always excited and don't have time for those things. All right, I see one person who is tempted to glorify Krishna. That is Adipusha Prabhu. Unmute yourself.
We pray that we say what Srila Prabhupada would like us to say. This story is it's a little bit of perplexing, because here's somebody who did something very generous. He gave so many cows. Seems like a very generous thing. And then he had this terrible reaction where he was condemned to take birth in the body of a lizard. And I don't know, it wasn't mentioned today, but as far as I remember, Prabhupada told us that the point is that two people can do the same thing, but for a different reason. And that in our activity in spiritual life, there's a possibility we might slip into pious activities like karma kanda, that we do something like generously giving charity for our own benefit.
Oh, nectar instructions. Never mind.
What did you say?
Nothing.
We might do something that looks very religious, but we're only thinking it's doing it for a selfish reason. Elevation to heavenly planet, blessings, advancement, and like that. And so the solution is to do things as an offering to Krishna. Even we're talking about the different activity of coming to the class and how we will become ecstatic or blessed or something like that. But actually, we come to the class as an offering to Krishna, and that would be, even as if we are blessed, but that's a byproduct. It's not what we're seeking. Anyway, that's what I've heard, that there's a possibility of doing a religious looking activity, but actually for a selfish motive. And I don't know where that resounds with what anybody else heard from Jill Prabhupada say, but that's what I heard. Dayal goes to Prabhupada.
So what if I'm feeling selfish, lazy, and full of pride? Should I not come to class?
We can always do something good, but there's a quality of consciousness behind it that's recommended. And we will get Yoginam api sarvesham, the highest yogi is one who abides with me with great faith. Bhakyamam abhijanati, that by devotional service we see Krishna. Devotional service, not pious activities for blessings. So that's what I've heard is the purport of this story. And maybe somebody else can reinforce that's what Prabhupada tells us. The Vedas mainly deal with the modes of material nature, rise above these modes. You know that verse. There's so many verses in Dharma Projita Kaitava, the second verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam says, this Bhagavatam kicks out cheating religion. Cheating religion? Yeah, cheating religion. You're cheating yourself because you're not, you're just missing the mark by a little bit. Just like if you miss your airplane flight, so you're 10 minutes late. Well, I was only 10 minutes late, but you didn't get on the plane. Or one person who has 1 foot on the boat and 1 foot on the dock. That's absurd. The boat is moving. Get both feet on the boat, surrender to Krishna. That's Prabhupada's message. Surrender to Krishna. You do what I offer, a fruit, a leaf, a flower, with love, trying to please Krishna. We're trying to please Krishna. We're trying to get something. And we were just reading in the Bhagavatam verse It was about a month or two ago, and it said there's a distinction between religious activities that are performed for our own gain advancement and religious activities that are devotional service to Krishna. Two kinds of religious activities, a very slight but very important distinction, is what I've heard. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maybe that was helpful.
Very helpful. I was reminded of the verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, whatever you do it as an offering to me.
Offering
Don't
to
do
Krishna.
it to collect blessings or gain adoration and distinction. Do it as an offering to Krishna, to please Krishna. Thank you.
Narayana Parasave, it says the devotee doesn't care if he goes to heaven or hell. The gopis were willing to put the dust of their feet on Krishna's head to help his headache. Don't you know you'll go to hell? We don't care. They were just thinking of serving Krishna and pleasing Krishna. And that if that's our motivation, then we don't have to worry about getting turned into a lizard or missing the mark by engaging in religious activities with not the best motivation. Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, glories
Thank
to
you,
Srila.
All right. All glories to all the children on this call and to all the childlike adults on this call. We need you. Yeah, look at Baba. Look at him. He looks ecstatic. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhus and Prabhujinis. We love you. We need you. Come again tomorrow. Don't worry about possibility of turning into a lizard. That's my takeaway. It's okay. We're all lizards already. Nonsense. But we are marked. Dayal Gauranga Prabhu said we are marked.
I'm setting 5 alarms for tomorrow's class.
Yeah, that's the title. That's the title for this class. 5 alarms to wake up. Is that okay, Gauranga Lila? Can we borrow this?
Yeah.
Title of the class? Cool. Thank you. All right.
You have answered all my questions through this one class.
Nice. Thank you for asking those questions, Gauranga Lila. We need them. Srimad Bhagavatam is a discussion.
Adipur should sing every class, and sing his songs.
Yeah. Live music every morning. And tune in. All right. Siham has a hand up.
Yeah, just wanted to. Yeah, well, I want to say something to Gauranga Lila. It's not because all your questions were answered today that you will stop coming. I think you have triggered so much conversation by asking your questions. So please keep coming and inspiring us. Thank you so much.
Jai, Hare Krishna. Okay, love you all. Hari Bol, Jeffrey Eckler, performing Namaskar. Hare Krishna. Take care.